Vincent with SCA Iowa and another introductory video for the Society for Creative Anachronism. The SCA is a worldwide historic recreation organization dedicated to recreating all the best aspects of the Middle Ages. Anything that was made, used, consumed before 1600. We have friends who enjoy learning about it, exploring it, trying it, teaching others about it. It's a way to explore history hands-on. This is done at a variety of events held across the country and around the world. But being a nonprofit organization, it's not like there are media blitzes advertising these upcoming events. You need to know where to get the information you need in order to figure out which upcoming events you would like to attend, and to discover the important information you need in order to find out what you need to know about them. This information can be found in a few key spots: social media posts, websites for the events, as well as event flyers. Event flyers are a throwback to the days when we printed physical newsletters and then we mailed them to members in order to inform them about upcoming events. But of course, now the newsletters and announcements have migrated online, but the format of the event and flyer announcements remain the same. Mostly it's written into the kingdom policies and the society policies. There's a statement saying that no event is an official SCA sanctioned event without first being announced through these kingdom newsletters and in the format of a flyer. Unfortunately, this leads us to a few modern problems and confusions, but you can overcome all of these with just a little bit of information. All newsletters and announcing events within the Society for Creative Anachronism have to have certain key bits of information. If you know how to decode the information in the newsletter, then you can understand the information that you need in order to plan for upcoming events. Now, the first thing to point out is where to find these event flyers and information about the events. The normal place that current members look for this information about upcoming events is on their kingdom website. Each kingdom has a calendar of upcoming events, and it can usually be found linked off of the main page of the kingdom website or directly on the main page of the website. On this calendar, you can see upcoming events listed out, and in most cases, by clicking on an event name, more information will be provided about that upcoming event. I should point out that in many cases, it's still possible to subscribe online to a kingdom's newsletter, which will also have this information. Although anymore, I feel that most members don't bother to subscribe to these newsletters, and they just rely on the kingdom website to plan out which events they would like to attend. Now, once you find the kingdom calendar with the links to the upcoming events, you will likely find a link to a flyer as well as a link to a website. In general, the website is going to contain more accurate and up-to-date information as well as more detailed information than the event flyer. But based on the policies of the SCA, the event flyer must be published well in advance of the upcoming event. Let's look at detail at an event flyer. There is some information that's found on every event flyer. At the top of this, one of the most obvious things, is the name of the event. This name may represent a well-established event that has been held yearly for a long time, or it may also be a one-off event held only once. It might be a kingdom-level event, like a crown tournament or a coronation. It might even be information about an event held outside of your own kingdom. Most of the time, you will also see the name of the hosting group featured prominently on the event flyer. Usually, the event is held within the area that this group is part of, but this isn't necessarily true. There are some events that are sponsored by certain groups but held in another group's territory. Another bit of important information featured prominently on any of these flyers is the date or dates of the event, letting you know whether it's a single-day event, a weekend event, or an event that lasts longer than just the weekend. Obviously, you need to know this information in order to plan out whether or not you can attend. Nearby this information is also likely to be a statement of the hours of the event, when the doors will open, and when everyone is expected to leave the site. The location of the event is required to be listed as well, and this should be in the form of a physical address. Sometimes they will also include directions to driving to the site if there is some confusion about the best way to drive there. The cost of the event is also always featured on an event flyer. This can sometimes be referred to as a cost or a site fee, but the official term is the registration fee. Adult registration is the cost for a non-member adult to participate in the event. There is also an adult member registration fee listed, which represents the $5 discount that paid SCA members receive when attending an official SCA event. There's also likely to be additional information about youth or minors, and these fees can vary a lot between events. At some events, youth registration is heavily discounted. At other events, people under a certain age are actually free to attend. Knowing all of this information helps you to figure out how much the event is actually going to end up costing you. Another section of information that is required to be on all of these event flyers is contact information for the person in charge of the event. Usually this is listed as the event steward, but they may also be called the event autocrat. And their contact information is provided so that people can ask questions about the upcoming event. Near this information, they may also have included contact information for the person in charge of cooking one of the meals at the event. They may be listed as a feast steward, an inn steward, or a feastocrat. Their contact information is usually provided so that people can ask questions about the food that's available on the site. There is some information that is usually found on these event flyers. This includes things like the list of activities for the day, information about site restrictions, information about food that is available on site, as well as a link to the event website. Information that's not often found on these flyers includes things like the actual schedule of the activities during the day or specific details about some of the scheduled activities. A common bad habit that SCA members have when they are creating these event flyers is to use certain jargon or code words to quickly explain bigger concepts. This can mean that newer members may not understand the key information that has been encoded into the flyer. So let's decode a few of these terms for you now. It's very common on these event flyers to see the terms wet, dry, discreetly wet, or damp. This is a long-running tradition in order to communicate how welcome it is for people to consume alcoholic beverages at these events. A wet site would be an event held at a location where adults are welcome to consume alcoholic beverages. A dry site indicates that the event is being held at a location where people should not bring alcoholic beverages to the event site. Sometimes this is emphasized with very dry, and this can relate to the stipulations of the site that we are renting. Quite literally, a member found drinking an alcoholic beverage at these sites could mean that the SCA group would no longer be allowed to use the site in the future. This is a very serious problem for us as a nonprofit, as there are very few sites that we can currently use. Discreetly wet usually refers to a site where people can consume alcoholic beverages, but they should transfer the beverage into a nondescript container, such as a mug, in order to make it less obvious. Rarely they use the term damp, and this usually indicates that people could consume alcohol, but they need to be extremely discreet about it. Other terms that you may find on an event flyer that sound a little confusing include things like royal progress. This means that at this particular event, the royalty will be participating in the day's festivities. Another term that you may see is something referring to order meetings. These are private meetings held for the recipients of specific awards or recognitions. These are closed meetings and should only be attended by members who have received these recognitions. An event that lists youth activities on an event flyer means that they have planned activities for children or teens to participate in. This doesn't mean that they are babysitting services and that the parents are relieved of all of their responsibilities for the day, but it may mean that the parents get a little extra help watching and entertaining their children at the event. Courts are opportunities for royalty to make announcements or bestow recognitions upon deserving members of the populace. Normally, courts are held in the afternoon, but there are many cases when there is an additional court held in the morning, or pop-up courts that happen with little or no announcement when they are trying to surprise someone with a recognition. Combat activities are common at many of our events, but sometimes the shorthand and jargon that is used to communicate information about these activities at the event gets a little confusing. Sometimes they will make announcements about the rattan-based combat recreation, and this may be referred to as rattan or heavy combat or armored combat. The steel-based combat, which also uses armor, can be referred to as steel, cut and thrust, C&T, or very rarely light combat. It has certainly been my experience that when you bring together friends at an event, food is bound to be enjoyed. And this is especially true at SCA events. There are often bits of abbreviated information encoded in the event flyer related to food information about the event. If they are talking about the feast, then they are referring to a more formalized meal that you need to reserve a spot at, usually when you are signing in at the registration table coming into the event. These are more formalized meals that take place in the evening after court, usually with the royalty sitting at a place of prominence. And they usually consist of multi-course meals where the cooks are trying to replicate the food and the feel of a medieval feast. Normally, these feast participants are expected to bring their own plates and cutlery as well. The event flyer may also refer to an inn. They are rarely called a tavern, but this is a much less formalized lunch that is provided so that participants don't have to leave the site. Usually the plates and cutlery are provided, and these are served in a much less formalized cafeteria or buffet style. Whether it is a feast or an inn lunch, these meals are cooked by volunteers who really do try their best to find things that everyone can enjoy. But we all know that with modern dietary restrictions and the wide variety of allergies that people have, it's pretty much impossible to completely cover every possibility with the finite budgets that are available to our groups. Sometimes there is dietary restriction and allergy information listed on the event flyers, but there's limited space on the flyer. So oftentimes you may need to contact the feast steward or check out for additional information on a website for more of the details. If the feast or inn menu does not work for you, then many events do allow participants to bring in food from the outside. It's quite common to see people run to a fast food restaurant and bring in a snacky lunch or bring in some snacks of a meat platter and cheese and bread to share with their friends. But sometimes we do occasionally rent a facility that doesn't allow us to bring in outside food. This is usually because the event site has a fundraiser or a group that they work with in order to cater food. Quite often it's tied to schools that use these as fundraising opportunities. And it's important for us not to violate their rules even when the food choices do not work with our dietary restrictions, as this can cost us the use of that event site forever. I know that one of the solutions that I have used in the past is to bring along a lunch and simply go out to my car and eat it, and return back to the event when I'm done. It's not elegant, it's not perfect, but at least it works. I know that it may sometimes feel like we don't want you to participate with our activities, with the way that we traditionally handle the information about our upcoming events. I promise you that this is just because of the old traditions that we have lingering around from before the days before internet and social media. We really do want you to feel comfortable finding our events and participating at them. I promise you that you are invited to come and enjoy our efforts to explore the past and take your first steps into historic recreation at events held across the Society for Creative Anachronism.